The horror genre is such an exploitable market. Some of the greatest works of art fall within the genre or subgenres of horror, yet that doesn't exclude the fact that, over the years, there has been a ton of steaming hot garbage produced and distributed within the genre of horror. Films, video games, books, no media format is safe from the abysmal shit that is manifested within the horror genre. Recently, I've been pondering about what makes the horror genre work, or more specifically, what makes something scary. Now, horror can elicit an entire spectrum of different emotions from the consumer. Examples for a normal person being fear, discomfort, anxiety. All of these emotions would be labeled as unpleasant or unwanted in most contexts. Books, films, video games that fall within the genre of horror or subgenres like suspense or thriller are designed to provide the consumer with negative emotions. These days, corporations and media push heavily this need for self-care, to take care of yourself and mitigate the things in your life that elicit negative emotions. There are trillion-dollar industries that solely exist on selling consumers the idea of living a better life, known globally as the wellness industry. If we're so focused on caring for ourselves, trying to mitigate the majority of negative emotions, why do we even consume horror media? Believe it or not, we humans get bored. Every day we seek stimulation, whether it be from environment, drugs, or devices. Our brains subconsciously tell us to perform behaviors, some positive, some negative, in order to stimulate mind and body or activate the process of neurogenesis. The University of Virginia, in association with Harvard, conducted a human study that tells humans would rather hurt themselves than sit with no stimulus whatsoever. This relates back to horror films and how they differently affect our emotions. Have you ever sat through a horror film in the theater and thought, holy shit, that was bad? Yet you go online a few weeks later and find out the film you thought flopped turned out to be a massive box office hit? What? Which years later spawned dozens of sequels and clones trying to piggyback off the film's success? Why are these films such a hit, yet have mixed to mostly negative reviews and reception? This goes back to what I started this video with. The horror genre is an exploitable market. This especially applies to the film medium. You'll be casually scrolling through your Instagram or Facebook timeline to stumble across an ad for a new upcoming horror movie. The trailer shows 2 minutes of the film's best scenes and looks intense and scary. You think, damn, I want to see that. You tag your friends who then also see the ad. You make a date for the cinema, buy your tickets, and watch the highly anticipated horror movie only to be hit with 118 minutes of absolutely fucking nothing. 2 minutes being the cool shit you already saw in the trailer. Sure, maybe the first jump scare will get you, but once you predict them, the films become nothing but a bunch of expositional build-up, and an ending that's disappointing leads towards them making an unwanted sequel, or God forbid both. Holy fuck, these movies suck. This marketing and sequel milking trend pretty much killed the Hollywood horror genre. That's not to say it's a recent thing, or that some films haven't broken the barrier and haven't been genuinely amazing experiences. Now more than ever, directors are approaching the genre and subgenres from entirely new and different angles, but now I'm getting off topic. What I'm trying to illustrate is that, even though you've probably seen a bunch of shitty or amazing horror movies, both potentially eliciting negative emotions, we as humans enjoy that stimulation they provide. Horror isn't just restricted to films. There are 2 more previously mentioned mediums that I want to explore. Those being video games and books. Starting, of course, with video games. A lot of you will remember the rise of the horror games trend in the early 2010s. Some of the biggest and most memorable being Amnesia, Five Nights at Freddy's, Slender Man. Their success was paved through the YouTube platform, generating millions of views and immense profit for the developers. Just like with some film producers, other game developers tried to piggyback off the previous game's success, causing the market to oversaturate. Some games being amazing and successful in their own right, while others being cheap and shitty attempts to generate a quick buck. These days, horror games are one in a few. A few years ago, a generic pitch-black walking simulator where the only source of light protrudes from the player's dick used to be considered scary. These days, that shit doesn't fly anymore. Over the past decade, kids have become desensitized to jump scares. Developers need to innovate now more than ever. One concept done right will stop working fairly quickly if repeated 6 times in a row.
A problem that I found myself repeatedly with the Five Nights at Freddy's games is that you know exactly what to expect. You know an animatronic is gonna scream in your face. And that's really scary the first couple times. But if you played all the FNAF games, that's gonna happen to you a couple 100 times. And that kind of takes the fun away from it. It's as if someone jumps in your face and yells boo. Yes, you get scared the first time. But if that friend keeps doing that, you just be like, you're a fucking asshole and you're not my friend anymore.
Sound design. This is what films and video games rely on. in order to be successful. This may sound stupid, but sound design is such a critical component of these mediums. Sound is what helps establish immersion and atmosphere. If your consumer isn't immersed in your product, they're not going to consume it. What helps a game or film's immersion factor? Atmosphere. Atmosphere created through sound design. Sure, visuals play a pretty key role, but sound design trumps it by a long run. Even the lack of sound can symbolically assist a narrative or intensify a game's atmosphere. You will notice if a film has bad sound before you notice it has bad story or visuals. The exact same principle applies for video games.
September 21st, 1987. My nightmares are getting worse. I have to finish what I started. What I am about to do has not been approved by the Vatican.
Faith is a 2019 game developed by Aired Games. You play as a priest who arrives at a house to perform an exorcism on a young girl. Inspired by classic films of the era such as The Exorcist and The Omen, it's an 80s Atari and Commodore style game playing off the technical limitations that video game graphics had 40 years ago, with small wads of pixels to represent the characters and environments. I've completed this game maybe 5 times and it still gives me the shits. But look at it. Does this look remotely scary? No. What gives this game its edge is its sound. The audio uses the same technical aesthetics as the visuals, with sharp 2-bit MIDI sounds and auditory peaking combined visually with ghastly minimalist sprite art to create a truly terrifying experience. I'm honestly surprised that this game holds up as well as it does. This game is free to play on Steam, and I can't recommend it enough.
My God, what happened to you? Do you think my face is pretty? I have to finish what I started. She's my priest. Mortis.
Now you know how important sound is within horror. How do you apply this to other media formats? What if the media doesn't allow for sound design or any sound? Books.
Bro, you not the thinker, let me...
There are some amazing early century novels that paved the way for the horror genre, in all mediums, but since I'm a visual guy, I'm gonna stick with horror illustrations, specifically horror manga. Japan houses some of the greatest horror illustrators of our time. Body horror legends such as Suehiro Maru, Kazuo Uzemu, and most famous Junji Ito have created pieces that extend beyond their culture, seen through the worldwide fame and success of their respective art styles. I recently finished the Tomie collection. It's a hell of a read, and I recommend you read it too if you get your hands on it. I'm gonna be honest, this book is the main reason I made this video. Tomie Kawakami, the vitriolic soul of a girl killed by her classmates that roams the earth, drawing in men from all walks of life with her beauty. Their insatiable love leads them to do unspeakable things for her, where their uncontrollable lust eventually leads them to always mutilate and kill her against their own will. No matter the manner or method, however, Tomie will eventually regenerate, occasionally as one or even many. No matter how hard you try though, you cannot escape Tomie. Tomie is the lead antagonist in multiple Junji Ito stories, all of which are compiled in the Tomie collection. She's been the star of 20 different stories, some being different chapters to the same stories, however, the majority being standalone short stories featuring different characters and plots. All, however, include Tomie. Some have even received live-action remakes and become animated episodes in the Junji Ito collection. Junji Ito, while famous for his grotesque, macabre, and often gory illustrations that take up full pages in his work, is a hell of a lot smarter than you think. Time for a lesson on
subtlety in horror.
Before reading the Tomie collection, I first read Shiver, a collection of individual Junji Ito works, all of which are incredible in their own right. Included in Shiver is Painter, the 9th story to feature Tomie. Since it's its own narrative, it's understandable outside of the full collection. While I personally don't recommend it, a lot of the Tomie stories can be read in any given order, as they're technically their own separate narratives. So Painter was the first story I had the pleasure of reading. Painter tells the story of successful painter Mitsuo Mori. The story begins with his 3rd open gallery. His portraits are widely successful, and he's begun to make a name for himself as an artist, amassing a following and financial success. In the midst of his gallery, a woman makes her way in and begins examining the art as Mitsuo notices her within the crowd. Now, imagine you know nothing about Tomie. You have never seen her image, nor have you ever seen those Instagram theming edits of her.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Now read this. It's pages 5 and 6 of Painter. All it took was 3 panels, one after the other. 3 subtle panels to visually communicate that this woman is not normal. No matter the story, Ito has always been extremely precarious about each panel he draws. The subtle details, like the very small linear vignetting on Mitsuo's eyes, the way he's completely cramped within the small panel, while Tomie reserves his dominant presence in the panels around him. The second he's made eye contact with Tomie, he's already under her spell. Within every story she appears in, Tomie is always drawn to leave the reader on edge. Whether she's being cut alive by the men who adore her, or being deceptively civil to get what she desires, she is never framed within a panel without purpose. This is what creates the atmosphere within her pages, and helps give the full page hypergore the effect that it does. This is what makes a good story. This is what creates good horror. Ask 10 different people what they find scary, and you will get 10 different answers. Ask 10 different people what they find unnerving, and you may not even get a direct answer. One is a direct response to our individual experiences and environments, while the other constantly changes, making itself present in the media we consume, but never fully apparent. This of course can be used effectively outside of horror, but I personally feel the genre is where it's most effective and leaves the longest lasting impact. When done correctly.
Shut your
Yeah, raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking, the hot pot, fucking on your bitch, yeah, that, cooking up dope in the crock pot, we came from nothing to something, nigga, I don't trust nobody, grip the trigger, nobody, call up the gang and they come and get gang, grab me a river, give you a tissue, bad and bullshit, bad, cooking up dope with a Uzi.